We promised we would do this. It's mailbag day.
It is mailbag. There's a guy that just shows up at the front door of the Wells Fargo Center. He's literally got a bag of mail for Dave and me.
What if we printed all these tweets out and just went through them like that? That's what we do if Ray was on.
Do people even have printers anymore? I don't even have a printer anymore.
I have to go to my parents' house to print things.
Yeah, my parents have a printer too. I think they have a fax machine.
All parents have printers, which is nice.
That's where we've gotten, where a printer is now obsolete.
Yeah, it really is.
My mom is like, if you can make it Saturday, then email me. I'm like, I don't email anybody. Things have changed.
All right, this is the Eagle Eye Podcast. Reuben Frank, Dave Zangaro. We've reached the summertime and there's not a lot going on. So this is a mailbag episode. We got a bunch of questions. So we're really just going to get to as many as we can. And that's taking out 95% of them about the word mark.
We can take as many as we want. It's not like we're on the air for 30 minutes or something.
Yeah, but we might get tired of these after
That's
a while.
True. I'm already tired.
And the word mark, I mean, let's address it because people
we got like 20 tweets about it.
Yeah, I don't really have an opinion on it. If I did, I'd tell you. I get why people are. I don't think there's any type of word mark, which is a term I definitely knew before they released that.
You did? I never heard it before.
No, I'm joking. I've never heard it.
I don't like it. I just don't think it looks good, but I don't.
You know,
not to get super worked up about it.
Yeah, I think there's nothing you can do from like a logo perspective that people will like because there's so much nostalgia connected to whatever it is. And it's basic. I get that. I'll be honest. I wasn't a big fan of the block letters though. To me, the block letters look like Microsoft Word art, like stuff I grew up with in elementary school. So but I get there's a lot of memories associated with it. And
wait, you're doing Microsoft Word art in elementary school?
Yeah.
Man, Marlton they were pretty progressive there.
Well, we had the computer lab.
Yeah, we didn't have anything. Yeah. Of course, computers hadn't been invented yet when I was in
elementary
school.
We had hand tools.
We had Abacus 101. Now slide the first.
Yeah, so I mean, people are worked up. I get it. But if that's your biggest problem with the Eagles off season, they're doing all right.
Yeah, that's fair. How come they don't have any safeties? And what's with this word mark? You don't hear much of that. Somebody asked me today, I was over in West Philly this morning and I was walking around Franklin Field at one point. And somebody asked me if I covered the 1960 NFL championship game.
And it wasn't me.
It wasn't you. Yeah. And they were serious. I was like, no, I wasn't quite born yet, but I'm sure it was a great game.
All right, let's get into some of these questions. Thank you to everyone who submitted.
Yeah,
and we apologize if we don't get to yours. But first one up here, Rich Gorelek. What would a successful season for Jalen Hurts look like? Successful meaning that he demonstrates he's a starting quarterback and the Eagles will not enter the market for QB after the season.
Yeah, it's a great question because I don't think we've ever really quantified it. I don't know if you can quantify it really with numbers. But for me, I guess the two things for me would be I'd like to see his completion percentage go from 61, I think it was 61.2 and look, this isn't a hard and fast rule because you can be really good and complete 63, 64, but I'd like to see it in the 65 range. I think if he can keep the turnovers down like he did last year, he had 9 picks. I think he lost 2 fumbles. So it's pretty good. He improved on that, certainly. I think if he can just go from 61 to 65, which is, that's like 1 completion per week. And I think just having upgraded weapons is going to help him get there. If he can just do that, if you're looking for numbers like 65%.
Well, how about these? I have some numbers in front of me. PointsBet put out some over-under numbers on the season for Hurts. The over-under in yards is 3,450.5. Touchdowns, 23.5.
Yeah, and for me, touchdowns, it's like he's going to rush for a bunch as well. So I guess total touchdowns, I'd like to see close to 30. I think, so I think 65% and 30 total touchdowns. I would say if he can do those two things, keep interceptions, about where they were or lower, that's what I need to see. I think if he can do those things, he's going to be their quarterback.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with you. Like, we're trying to quantify it.
It's hard.
But I don't even know if, I doubt the Eagles are even looking at it like that. I think what would
Alec Halaby is.
Yeah, well, but the numbers he's looking at are not
Sure.
this basic, right? So
Yeah.
for me, when I think of what's successful for Jalen Hurts, and I think there's like two things here, right? On one side, it's like he has this running ability. How can that be a positive for the offense? How can they kind of cater it around that? But then it kind of sneaks over into last year where it felt like his inability as a passer sometimes held the offense back. And sometimes those two things can kind of cross a little bit and it's tough to tell.
Yeah.
But I had that feeling sometimes last year watching the offense where like his inability as a passer was sometimes holding them back. And that's as blunt as I can put it. I don't think you can feel that way about your franchise quarterback.
Yeah, but I mean, and I totally agree with you. And I felt the same thing at times. At other times, I was like, "Wow, he's really something." But if we're talking about quantifying it, I'm gonna go concrete.
Well, we're
numbers.
not. I mean, this question didn't ask us to quantify it. It said, "What would it look like?" And that's what it would look like.
That's
to
fair.
me is,
yeah,
just not having that feeling that, it's kind of like Tampa Bay in that playoff game. They said, "Let's put it on Jalen Hurts. Let's force him to throw the ball," and he couldn't do it. We'll see. I think that's the next step in his career. I don't know if he can take it or not, but I think that's the key.
that's fair.
All right, next one from Philly Sports Connoisseur. First part of this question, I don't know the answer to. I don't know if you do. Has any player switched to the Riddell Axiom new helmet? I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah. Next part of it, he's got a tough choice here. I'm gonna get to go. Have to decide between visiting Chicago or watching the Eagles-Cowboys game at the Link. Wants advice on how to choose, and also mentions he loves cold weather, and the Chicago December thing doesn't bother him.
Yeah, I mean, if he lives in Philly, he's going to have plenty of chances to see an Eagles game at the Link, and they do seem to play the Cowboys just about every year. So I love
that.
Yeah, that's a
twice
pattern.
Actually.
But here, at least once. So, well, they've never played him in a playoff game at home. Actually, all the playoff games against Dallas have been down there. But yeah, I would go to Chicago. I think it's a cool stadium, although it's not quite as cool as the old Soldier Field before they renovated it.
Into a spaceship.
It kind of looks like an ELO album cover now. But it's a great town. It's a good walking town. That whole Miracle Mile, is that what they call that whole shopping district?
Magnificent Mile.
Magnificent Mile. Just the lakefront area. I would go to Chicago.
If you're just looking like, I actually disagree, because this is a fun year to be an Eagles fan because expectations are high. And that Eagles-Cowboys game, like, you could have a chance to see the game that pushes them into the playoffs and wins the division. So I would say, like, if this wasn't supposed to be like a year with high expectations, then go to Chicago. I think I'd lean toward going, like, Eagles-Cowboys is always fun, and it's probably going to mean more.
Except when it doesn't mean anything, which is like the last 3 years.
Okay.
But you're like Mr. Travel. You're telling the guy, just don't go anywhere, stay home. But no, I see what you're saying.
You're looking for the best game. I mean, that's the best game.
I do. I think he'll enjoy Chicago.
Okay. Next one we have here from TW. Is there any truth to the detractors and their assessment that Jalen being in high school through college and still not developing as a polished QB means he never will?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what he's getting after. I don't know what polished means, really. If it means efficient, I don't. I mean, he's never going to be, a guy who's going out there. And I mean, what's a polished quarterback? I don't even know what that means. So I don't really know how to answer that. I mean, obviously, he was a great college player. I didn't see him in high school, but I'm sure he was a great high school player playing for his dad. So, his detractors. I mean, we'll see how it plays out. I think there's been a lot of unfair detractors. I think there's a lot of people out there that see the negative and aren't seeing the positive in his game. And there are both. There certainly are both. But I don't want a guy he doesn't have to be polished. He just has to be effective, efficient, productive, and play well at the end of games. I don't really know what polished means.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting bogged down with the word polish. I think what he's saying is, like, can he improve still?
Why not?
And he's improved so far. It's not about whether or not he's going to improve. It's about how much and what does that look like. So yeah, I think I kind of get what he's saying here. And I think he's talking specifically, obviously, about being a thrower and a passer. It's not he has the running ability and he has the playmaking ability. It's can he be a consistent, improved passer? And yeah, I think he's going to keep getting better in that area. The real question
Just
is
how much?
yeah, what's the ceiling? And we just don't know that. Yeah. Next one from Scott Smith. If you had to cover a team other than the Eagles, who would you want it to be? Who would you want it not to be?
You want to take that one first?
Sure. I mean, for me, it would really, and I'm not gonna factor in like where I'd be living.
Oh, so I can't just say Seahawks so I can be in Seattle?
No, yeah, I'm thinking about like actually covering the
Sure.
team.
Yeah.
I just want to cover a team that people care about. That I think that's the cool thing about covering the Eagles is like, we're arguing about a word mark in June. Like people care so much.
Yeah.
So, I always thought like just the team now, not the city. Covering the Bills would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's like that's a hardcore fan base. They don't have much else. They're rooting on those Bills. So to me, that'd be the one I'd want to cover.
Yeah, you got the Pegulas are good owners. You got Sean McDermott, who's a good coach. They're getting a new stadium, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So downtown Orchard Park is a really nice area.
Yeah.
I would go a different direction. I would say the Sixers. And I've covered a few Sixers games. He didn't say NFL team, right? He just said what team?
True. I wasn't thinking about that.
So I would go Sixers. And
Okay.
I've gotten to cover a few Sixers games here and there. I did a playoff series with the Heat back in the day. That was that series. I had the game where Lou Williams hit the jumper at the buzzer, I think, to win game 4 and avert a sweep. And, that was the LeBron Heat and those guys. That was incredible. I was right behind the basket, and Lou Williams had it. I think it was on Mother's Day or Easter or something. Anyway, it wouldn't have been Mother's Day, but I would cover the Sixers. It's a great atmosphere. I think, look, I'm not the world's biggest Doc Rivers fan, but as a franchise, they're always interesting. Embiid's always interesting. You got a young star in Maxey, so I'd go Sixers.
How about the flip side of it? Who wouldn't you want to cover?
Yeah, it's the same as what you said. I would not want to cover a team that has empty stands. Like the Oakland A's. I don't know. I wouldn't mind living in the Bay Area, but you just like you see. Like I have the extra innings baseball package, and you see so many games with just empty stands.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking behind first base. There's nobody there. So I would go that direction. Just a baseball team. Because baseball is a grind, and I don't mind covering the game. I've covered, a bunch of Phillies games over the years, but it's a grind. And
I've covered them here and there. I couldn't imagine being, Jim Salisbury or Corey Seidman covering.
Yeah, and they're long days. Those guys get to
Check
the
out
ballpark.
The Phillies Talk podcast, by the way.
Yeah, they do a great job. But getting to the ballpark at like 2:30, and maybe there's a rain delay. I covered like a 14-inning game. They don't really have those anymore, but it's a long, hard day, and not that I'm trying to get out of work, but another thing is I think one great thing about covering the Eagles is there's not that many games. So the games are really, there's so much importance on each one, and you have so many days in between to do really interesting stories. They don't get that in baseball. They're just kind of game.
Honestly, this is a little inside here that, covering the NFL is in a lot of ways the nicest gig for a sports reporter because some of the baseball schedule is obviously crazy. Hockey and basketball, obviously a lot more games. Football, I love going through a week and the build up to the game. To me, it's almost as much fun as the game itself.
Right. Yeah. Plus, you don't have to work nights.
Yeah. Well, you do a few times.
Well, a couple Monday night games, Sunday night game, but you don't have to work nights. You can be home. You can go out to concerts, which I do here and there.
For me, I was thinking in terms of football only. I didn't. You kind of looked at it differently than me. I was thinking Washington, the football team, the Commanders.
Yeah.
I mean, I see my buddy JP Finley down there, and it's good and bad, but there's just always something.
Yeah, because, then you're writing more about non-football than football. And you have to do that to some extent with every team. But with Washington, I think the games are really almost secondary right now. Plus, I just don't want to deal with that quarterback again.
Fair enough. All right, next one from Dr. Carpenter. How do you think the tight end position will play out this year? Any surprises?
And congratulations to him for getting his doctorate in carpentry. We're all proud of you. Yeah, it's a great question, and I've been clear about Dallas Goedert. I think he's a Pro Bowler. I think he's a 70 catch guy for somewhere around 1,000 yards. I think he'll be a top 3 or 4 tight end this year in the league.
He already is, honestly.
He really is when you take into account everything. Beyond that, it's a great question. I think Jack Stoll's going to have a significant role. They love his blocking. I think Grant Calcaterra is going to play a little bit, and I think it's tough to count on a 6th-round rookie really at any position, but I do think he'll be in the mix here and there. I don't know if Jack Stoll can be an effective receiver. If he can, then you got a guy who can do both. Even if you're just talking about like 1 or 2 catches a game, or just a couple catches a month, just somebody to be, somebody who the defense has to at least account for. If Grant Calcaterra, he has a better chance of being that than Jack Stoll. Just go out and play some snaps and catch a ball here and there. Catch a ball, every other week, a couple balls here and there. I think he will have a role. I think he'll be. I think it's going to be mostly Goddard. I don't think they're going to play a whole ton of 12. And when they do, I think it'll be mainly him and Stoll. But I do think Calcaterra will have a role.
Yeah, the forgotten guy in all this is Tyree Jackson, who they really liked.
Yeah.
And then he tore his ACL really late in the season. So, look, I think he's going to start the year on the pup. But I kind of wonder what happens when he's healthy.
Yeah.
Because at that point, would he be better than their 3rd tight end, who at that point would either be Stoll or Calcaterra? They were high enough on Tyree Jackson to really want to see him last year. And they saw him for a little bit. He didn't do much, but they like him. They like the skill set. And that's the thing I'm really curious about beyond Goddard and Calcaterra, just because he's new. But Tyree Jackson, like what is he, and what do they think about him in terms of when he's healthy? Like, is he going to be back on the roster?
It's tough. He's in a tough position because he wasn't cleared he wasn't participating at the OTAs, at least that we saw, and he didn't look like he was close. If he misses training camp, he's going to be really behind.
He probably will. That's
he
like
probably
7 months out.
Yeah, and he's
not
learning.
Even like 6.
He's trying to learn a new position. He was a quarterback at Buffalo. I think it's going to be tough for him to have a role. He's going to have to just come in without a camp, without mini camps, at a new position and start playing. Yeah, that's going to be hard. So, great kid, and he'll put in the work. But with the back injury and then this, he's missed a lot of time. So, I wouldn't expect him to have a role this year, but I wouldn't count him out.
So, I guess, are there any surprises there? I don't really think there are, unless. I think we kind of know the situation right now. It's Goddard's a tight end 1, and then we'll see the other 2 kind of fighting.
I think Stoll's tight end 2. I think he's got to go. The guy was playing 30% of the snaps last year, 30 or more in some games.
Yeah.
So I think he's tight end 2. Calcaterra's tight end 3 right now. We'll see if Calcaterra can eat into that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that defined.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Next one is from Alex. What was both of your first jobs in journalism?
Well, we had a tablet and we wrote on the cave walls. My first job in journalism was at the Gloucester County Times. I got hired in September of 1982. It was fun. Yeah, I got to cover like Flipper Anderson, who
did you ever have like any stringing work before then?
Well, yeah, in college I was stringing for the local paper, the Delaware Gazette out in Central Ohio. It was a little small family-owned, like 12,000 daily.
Yeah.
And they paid us by the story. It was funny because I was in college. So I think we got something like maybe like $22 a story.
Mm-hmm.
So in a good weekend, I could cover like an Ohio Wesleyan baseball game, tennis match, lacrosse game, whatever, like a track meet. And we had to type the stories up, and then we would put them under the door that night, and then they would come in the next morning and get them. So if I played it right, I could make like $88 on a Saturday. When you're in college, like that's big time money. Like because a case of Jenny Cream Ale was like, $3.16. So, you get yourself like 27 cases of beer for 4 stories.
It's not bad.
How about you?
Well, I did some stringing before I ever got a job. It was funny. I used to do color commentary for high school football games, and then I started to do some freelance work. So I was double dipping there for a while.
Now, when you were at Glassboro State or Rowan, did you ever work for the Gloucester County Times at all? Did you ever string or anything for them?
Not for them.
Okay.
I was in college when I started stringing for the Burlington County Times.
Okay.
So I was spending my weekends, part of my weekends, like Friday nights in Burlington County. I was already calling the games on radio, so I reached out to our old boss, Wayne Richardson, and said, "Hey, like, can I do some freelance work for you?" And I was double dipping. It was great.
We'd love to have you, Dave.
Dave
and I both work
that's
for
an
the Burlington
impression
County Times.
that like 5 people will appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, we both worked for the Burlington County Times, but the Gloucester County Times was a great job. And I got to cover, like Olympians like Jack Pierce and Flipper Anderson, who played for the Rams. I think for a while, he had the record for most yards in a game. Gordy Lockbaum, who was third in the Heisman balloting for Holy Cross. I got to cover some really cool athletes in that short period of time I was there. I loved it there.
Yeah.
Even though I was only making $200 a week.
Yeah, those first jobs are
Yeah.
stretches you a little thin.
Yeah.
All right. Next one is from, I guess, this Twitter account is "This tweet is unavailable," which is really confusing.
Yeah.
I read today that the Bears' 5th-round left tackle is starting over their previous 2nd-round left tackle in camp. We know where this is going. Dillard, keep or trade?
Yeah. You want to take that first?
I think it's possible that they could trade Dillard. And look, I still think he's a left tackle in the league, at least an average left tackle. We've just never really seen him get a chance to have a job, hold on to it, and get better week after week. And I think he would get better. I think he's athletic enough that eventually that would shine through. And if you're the Eagles, I think as much as they care about these joint practices, there's still a reason they play the preseason games. I think that's a real good opportunity to get him out there, show what he can do, and see if a team will bite.
I think they're going to trade him. I'll say that. And you liked Dillard more than I do. I think he's okay.
That's all I think.
Okay. Well, did you say average?
Yeah.
I think he's below average. I don't think he's a lot below average, but I don't think he's one of the 16 best left tackles in the league.
Okay.
So I don't think he's quite that good, but I think he can play in the league. I'm not sure he can be a 16 game or 17 game starter for a good team, but I think he'll bounce around the league. I do think they're going to ship him though.
Yeah. I mean, there's some bad. We get spoiled here watching this team because they've had really good offensive line play. You look around the league and it's not like that. I mean, to me, offensive line play is the biggest reason why all these other leagues that spring up kind of stink, because there's not enough good offensive linemen to make offenses look good.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I think that's possible too. Oh, there was a second part to this, and I'm guessing this is for you. Ever been to the Stone Pony summer stage? Any good? Too Big, Macy, Spoon, Interpol, the Goon Sax there.
Yeah, 3 great bands. I love that new Goon Sax record. It's really, really good. Of course,
there were no commas there, and I thought that's the worst band name I've ever heard.
Spoon, Interpol, Goon Sax. Interpol is really good. Spoon is like one of the best live bands out there. I love Spoon. I've seen Spoon like 10 times, and just saw the 2 main guys, Brett and Alex Fischel, play as a 2-piece acoustic at Non-Com at World Cafe Live in May. But I've never been to the summer stage, but I hear good things about it. I would definitely go see that show. Goon Sax is our up and coming band, I think from Chicago. They're really good. So that's a great bill right there.
All right. Here we go. Jamar Williams. Can you talk about the value of adding another rookie quarterback on a 5-year deal versus paying Jalen Hurts $25 to $30 million? How he would continue to have cap flexibility instead of committing to Hurts if he's still in the bottom half of QBs?
I mean, that's the $1 million question. What are they going to do at quarterback?
It's a $30 million question.
Yeah, I just can't answer it. We just don't know.
But I get the point here is like, there's a definite advantage to having a quarterback on a rookie contract. The Eagles are enjoying that advantage right now. with Jalen Hurts, but I don't think that you can just think about it in terms of that advantage, right? You're trying to find the quarterback. You're trying to find the right quarterback. And I think that when you end up in a situation where you have a quarterback and you don't have to pay him a lot, you can be opportunistic there and then put the money elsewhere. But I don't think it can change the goal of trying to find the right franchise QB.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, you can't just try to save money as your main goal, but if the two line up, that's how Seattle won a Super Bowl. I mean, by surrounding young Russell Wilson with, and I think that's what Howie's trying to do with.
In a way, it's how the Eagles won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, yeah. They didn't have a ton of high-priced free agents, did they?
Well, they paid their own guys quite a bit. They brought in a bunch of free agents that year. Alshon had $9.5 million in 1 year.
He did. That's true. I mean, I'd rather have a quarterback getting $40 million a year who's worth it than try to have a young quarterback who you don't know about, who's doesn't get paid much. But you have to have the right guy and you have to make the right decisions. If you have an elite Hall of Fame type quarterback, you can find players. And that's when you have to draft well. You have to draft well because you're not in position to bring in Hassan Reddick and AJ Brown and guys like that. So if you have the guy, then you got to draft well. If you don't have them, then you got to surround them with good people. So there's no easy way.
This next question kind of lines up with that. This is from Richard. Assuming Jalen continues to grow, what would a contract extension look like for him? Do you think Howie will be more stingy with the money with the falling out of the former number 11? Y'all might be okay saying his name, but it's still forbidden in my house. That's interesting. Like, how much has the experience with Carson changed Howie's outlook on paying the quarterback? I don't think it. I think maybe it changes the way he evaluates the player, but I don't think it'll prevent him from signing another quarterback to a big money deal.
Yeah, it can't. You can't let that. You can't let that happen. You got to do what's best for the team and take each guy as an individual case. You can't get scared off because, and look, gosh, I just can't say his name, Dave. I don't know what's going to happen when we have to talk about Carson Strong. I don't even know if I can do it. Oh, I just did it. Look, you can say that he was worth it because he helped this team win a Super Bowl in 2017. That was obviously before the contract extension, but yeah, you can't shy away from doing the right thing for your team just because of what happened a few years ago.
Yeah. As far as the contract itself, it's really
a great question.
It's really tough to figure out. The world of NFL quarterback contracts has become really wacky. And you have to remember that Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert will be eligible for extensions at the same time as Jalen. But those guys were also first-round picks, so you have the fifth-year option on those contracts. But I'd imagine as soon as Burrow and Herbert get through this year, they'll get mega contract extensions that'll probably, top the top guys now.
Who's the top guy now? Aaron Rodgers?
Aaron Rodgers, over $50 million a year.
Yeah.
But it's really kind of bizarre here because, in our minds, we're thinking, all right, top quarterback gets 25 to 30 mil. No, I mean, it's much more than that. There are only 1, 2, 3 quarterbacks in the 20 million APY range.
Really?
Which is crazy to think about. It goes from, and like there's a clear cutoff. Jameis Winston is at 14 mil a year. The next highest is Tom Brady at 25 million. And then there's only 3 guys. Jimmy Garoppolo's at 27.5, Ryan Tannehill at 29.5. And then with Matt Ryan upward, it's 30 million above.
Interesting.
There are 7 quarterbacks getting paid 40 million annually.
When Dave says APY, by the way, it just means average per year.
Yeah. Which is the easiest way to kind of rank.
The best way to rank. Yeah. There's no perfect way.
You're right. There's no perfect way because you have to factor in guarantees and signing, but the easiest way is to do it. And it's, so you're taught, like, if he proves he's a real franchise quarterback, forget 25 mil a year. It's going to be over $30 million a year.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. By then, sure.
And look, the salary cap's going to keep rising, we assume, but we have to kind of retrain the way we think about quarterback contracts because they're kind of exploding right now.
Yeah.
And then that kind of lends, it makes you think about Jamar's question.
Right.
Because he might prove that he's a good enough quarterback for this team to win, but is he good enough to warrant that sizable percentage of their overall cap space? And that's not easy to answer. And hopefully he answers these questions for us with his play this year, one way or the other. But chances are it's probably going to end up somewhere in the middle again.
Yeah. Chances are.
Yep. Next question from Annette Boyer. What was your favorite summer vacation destination when you were children / in your teens?
Well, I think I probably talked about this in the past. My dad's from Maine, and we would go up and see his mom when I was a kid. Every summer, we'd stay up on a little island called Peaks Island off the coast of Maine in Casco Bay, and just spend like a month there in this like, it was like an old it was like a grand hotel from the turn of the century that was still open. And not that many people stay there, but it was, it was a beautiful spot right on the water. And, we went there. I went there every summer when I was a kid. I loved it, man. That's where I started running, just because it was like 4 miles around the island. There wasn't a lot to do. It was like, there's nothing to do. Actually, you go to the beach. If it's raining, you go to the gift shop and buy a hoodie, and that was it. And, it was like a 20-minute, ferry ride to Portland, which is a great little town. I still like going there here and there.
Yeah, I get that. I never had like
I was never a Jersey Shore guy. We just never,
Yeah, I mean, I was Jersey, but I grew up at the Jersey Shore. But for me, like my favorite vacation when I was a kid, I was probably like early teenager or like 12, 13, 14, something like that. Me and my parents went to Arizona, and we did like a big road trip around. It was my first time going to the Grand Canyon and Sedona, and we drove all over. We had this rental car that we just racked up miles on it. But I was like on my first time really realizing how much I liked being outside and seeing national parks and all that stuff. And that's kind of like, I look back at that trip as like, okay, this is what I like. And
is that when you saw the meteor site in northeastern Arizona?
Oh, meteor crater?
Yeah.
No, I actually didn't see it then. So this is my, and I still bring it up with my mom today. She's a very, and I have some of this, but she's very structured. And she'll
of this? You have some of this?
But we were like on a very tight schedule, and I saw the sign that said meteor crater, and it was like, an hour drive, and I really wanted to go and go out there and see it. And she wouldn't let us because she's like, no, we're on this strict schedule. So ever since then, when I'm on a trip, I always give myself a little wiggle room, because if I see a meteor crater, I want to go see it.
Yeah.
Okay. Good life lesson.
Yeah.
Next one from Ezekiel Quasar. And after, I'm going to go run in the bathroom when I ask this. Who is the living Philly area track and field Hall of Fame coach most Philly folks don't know?
Hall of Fame. So there's a guy named Wilbur Ross who lives in like Mount Laurel. He's a legendary hurdles coach. He's coached Olympia. He coached Jack Pierce from Woodbury, from Gloucester County, when he won the bronze medal in 92. And Jack was one of the first hurdlers under 13 seconds. You saw Devin Allen run 12:84. I believe Jack ran 12:98 in 96 at the Olympic trials in Atlanta in the semis. I was there. I was at the finish line in that race. But Wilbur Ross still coaches hurdlers from all over the country. He's a legendary guy, and he's right here in the Philadelphia area. So Wilbur Ross is my answer.
We have a couple more of these track ones we'll get out of the way here.
Get out of the way.
Armin Vanor.
Heart and soul of this podcast.
Vanor. Sorry for butchering your name. Speaking of track and field, wasn't John Carlos drafted by the Eagles way back when?
And the funny story about John Carlos was, I don't think he was drafted. I think he was a free agent. I should have looked it up. But the year before, the Eagles drafted Harold Carmichael. No, Carmichael was 71, like in the was he 7th round?
Mhm.
Carlos was here in 70 in training camp, and he was on the practice squad. They didn't call it that back then. I think they called it the taxi squad. He was very raw. Obviously, he was very fast, Olympian in the 400 or the 440, probably 400 by then. And
He was drafted.
Oh, he was drafted. Okay.
Yeah,
Was he
15th
12th round or something?
371 overall.
In 1970?
1970.
Okay. So in the summer of 71, and I believe Ray Dinger told this story on a podcast with us years ago, the Eagles had basically 2 long shot, raw, unknown wide receivers in training camp in 71. And one was John Carlos and the other was Harold Carmichael. And there was a lot of internal discussion about which one to keep. And there was the camp that wanted John Carlos. This kid's fast. He's got all this potential. Harold Carmichael's really raw. He's a long way from being an NFL player. He's tall. There's not a lot of wide receivers that tall. And like at the last minute, they decided to keep Harold instead.
For those who don't know who John Carlos is.
I was going to say, for those who don't know who Harold Carmichael is.
Yeah, well, John Carlos is, obviously the member of the photo that's one of the most famous photos in track and field history. Him and Tommy Smith with their fists raised at the 68 Olympics. That's John Carlos. So it was a big deal I'm assuming it was a big deal that he was trying to make an NFL team.
Yeah, and he'd never played. I mean, he didn't know. I think as Ray told the story, he didn't know how to put his pads on. Yeah. His first day and his first couple of days in camp. But it was the Eagles. Well, how does it? What is it? What movie is it? Raiders of the Lost Ark. You have chosen wisely.
All right. Next one here from Johnny Ringo. Who on the current roster would you put on your 4x4 team, and who would anchor it?
I should have prepared. I should have thought about this. Well,
I can't believe you don't have it ready to go.
Devin Allen would anchor it. I don't care that he's not a quarter miler. He could go out there. If he can run as fast as him, he could go out there and probably run a 47.5. I'd put Kerry Vincent on. He's got a great track history.
That's funny. He has a great track record.
Yeah, he does. So 400. You're looking for a guy. It's not the 4x1 here. You need a guy with some strength and some speed. I'll bet Slay could run a pretty good 400. I'll put Slay on there. Trying to think if there's any intermediate hurdlers from high school on this team. Like RG3 was a national champion high school intermediate hurdler. So, I'd love to put him on there. Who else can we put on there? I'd probably put maybe Devontae or Quez.
I like Devontae. He's got that long stride.
He's got a long stride. He kind of looks like a half miler. So a lot of half milers, come down and run the 400. So, I'll go him.
Yeah. All right. Hopefully that's it. Next one is
you're picking the questions
from top comment. You talked about a possible Miles Sanders contract as his rookie deal is almost up. What kind of season do you see him having this year under this new offense? Can we see Sanders as another lethal weapon for this team?
Yeah, he's one of the bigger unknowns on this team, and that's why his whole contract thing is so intriguing. I mean, he's got the ability. We know that. I believe I looked it up yesterday. He's got the 8th highest rushing average in history by a running back with 500 or more carries. 5.1 and 5.3 the last 2 years, but he just can't stay healthy. So he was healthy for the most part his rookie year. He got hurt just before the playoff game, but he played. It's tough to count on him, honestly, because of all the games he's missed. It's not that unusual for running backs. He's actually started the 10th most games by running backs since he got here in 19. If he can figure out how to stay healthy, and some of it's not in the player's control, I think he's going to be really good. I like him more than a lot of people. I know a lot of people think running backs are expendable. Just bring in the next guy, minimum wage guy, and get what you can out of him. I think Miles will be pretty good this year. I think he'll play well enough early in the season to get a contract extension that's not super expensive.
Yeah, I mean, even if he misses time, which based on the last couple of years is likely, you're still talking about a guy who's going to play 12, 13 games, and he's going to be a big part of those games.
Yeah.
His rushing average the last couple of years is behind just Nick Chubb.
That's 5.2 over the last 2 years. Yeah.
So,
I just wish he could catch the ball better.
Yeah,
Like
I get that.
if
He's
he could
working
catch the
on it.
ball like he did as a rookie, he's looking at $7 million a year. He hasn't shown that he can do that. And he's closer to like $4.5 million.
All right, next one from Bob McDevitt. If you had to nominate one ex-Eagle to be president of the United States, who would it be and why?
For me, it would be Nnamdi. Nnamdi is one of the smartest people I've ever met. He knows. He is so up on world affairs. He's so well read. He's eloquent. He's quick on his feet. Couldn't play a lick when he was here, but you don't have to be president. Very thoughtful guy. He's my guy. But I'll tell you what, I got another guy. Alan Dial is a safety that was on. He was in camp a couple years with the Eagles in the late '80s. Alan Dial, Dial, and he became one of the top. He worked in the DA's office. He was like one of the top district attorneys in the country. He like never lost a case. He's a brilliant guy. He's now an attorney with a big firm in Washington. He's a brilliant guy. If he chose to go into politics, and I think Buddy actually said he's going to be president one day. He was talking about him. Hey, how's Alan Dial coming along as a safety? Well, I don't know about a safety, but he could be president one day. So those are my two guys, Alan Dial and Nnamdi. Couple D-backs.
I'll give you another D-back.
Yeah.
How about Troy Vincent?
Yeah.
I mean, being as high as he is, he's probably the next commissioner of the NFL. That's like that's not that far removed from being president.
Yeah, big pay cut.
Yeah.
Pennsbury's own, Pennsbury High School, Troy Vincent.
All right. This is from Nina Rude. What are the Birds going to do at safety? Youth and lack of depth there is scary. Do you see Howie adding another during training camp?
Nnamdi, Alan Dial, and Troy Vincent are all going to be in camp. 3 presidential candidates. You want to start out?
Sure. I mean, I think everyone, and we had a few specific questions about Jesse Bates. I think that's kind of a pipe dream. Cincinnati's, they don't like to give up players like that. So, as much as the Eagles might want to go and try to land someone like that, I don't know if it's very realistic. I think there's a chance they try to add some depth, but I don't know if there's a elite level or even a good NFL safety who's going to end up on this roster. I agree more with the depth. I think they need to find some depth there. That's the type of addition I think is most realistic.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're not going to bring in a starter at this point. I mean, it's going to be, Anthony Harrison and Epps, and I do think they'll bring in someone, a training camp body, a guy probably a veteran guy who maybe gets cut or isn't in camp yet. But as far as a legit player, I just don't see it.
All right, next one from Bob Reed. Will A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith be a dominating duo in the league?
Yeah, why not? I mean, I don't know exactly what. I mean, they're both guys that had just under 1,000 yards last year in different places. So, yeah, I would. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't be.
Could they both go over 1,000?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I mean, look, I think the two of them and Goddard are going to be. All three of them are going to be in that 900 to 11. I don't think anybody's going to have 1,700 yards in this offense. They're going to be pretty balanced. I don't think any one of them is that much.
You honestly probably don't want someone to.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. So I think you'll see those three like 9 to 11, and then Quez with, 5 or 6, 7. I mean, it's going to add up to like 5,000 passing yards, but I think they'll be pretty balanced.
All right. Next one, James McKeith. Who's going to be the odd man out on the defensive line? I feel like it's going to be Milton Williams, which is a shame because his upside is tremendous.
Well, I agree about his upside, and I like Milton. I don't think he'll be an odd man out because they're going to play everybody, and that's just the way the NFL is now on the D line. You just want to keep bringing in fresh guys. I think, especially because I don't think Jordan Davis is quite ready to have a huge role, a huge number of snaps, and I think Fletcher at this point in his career is best having limited snaps too. So I think they'll rotate a bunch of guys and they'll have opportunities.
Yeah, and Milton is pretty versatile. So he can play inside and a 4-man front. He can kind of be a 3-4N too. He can play that 4I. Like he can play a bunch of different spots. So I think he's still going to play. Maybe he loses some snaps that he would have gotten if Jordan Davis wasn't here. I think that's probably fair to say, but odd man out, I don't see that.
Agree.
All right. This is from Cecil Howie Lacatelli. What has to go wrong other than injuries for the Eagles to not win the NFC East this year?
What has to go wrong is Jalen not making the strides that we expect him to make. It's that simple. Like everything else is in place.
Yeah.
I think that's really, I mean, look, Dallas could win 13 games. The Eagles could have a good year and not win the division.
So I'm thinking, like, is if Dallas is much better than we expect.
Yeah, that's certainly.
Dak Prescott becomes like a top 10 quarterback again.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is a top 10 quarterback.
Okay.
When he's healthy. So yeah, but it's just staying away from injuries. I would say just Jalen not progressing the way everybody in the organization hopes, and the Cowboys winning 13 games.
From Tom, I'm going to try to roll through some of these. From Tom Edziski, do the Eagles bring in another bigger running back, or are we rolling with 3?
No, I never got the obsession with bigger running backs. I mean, you have a goal line guy in Boston. I think a goal line back, the best goal line backs are smaller guys that are quick, have a low center of gravity, can see the field, I mean, bigger backs. Like Ron Dane was drafted to be, the big back, and then he sucked at the goal line. But he was actually, he wasn't bad in the, in the open field. He averaged over 4 yards a carry. So I don't think they're going to, they might bring in somebody, but I think basically what you see now is what you're going to get as far as running back.
Yeah, I'm not even sure they keep 4 on the roster.
Yeah.
All right. Number 1 Hurts fan asks, which Eagles team was Roob the highest on going into the season?
Well, we all knew in 2004, I mean, once T.O. showed up, there was, as Ricky Waters once said, not that year, he wasn't on the team. He said, I can smell Super Bowl. He showed up at Lehigh and said, I can smell the Super Bowl. But other than that, like, I think the 1989 and 1990 teams, because Randall had really blossomed and 88, it was all like the fog rolled in. That's the only reason they lost to the Bears. We really thought 89 and 90 that those two teams, they still had incredible defense. They had Hall of Famer and all pros on defense. I mean, those teams had Eric Allen and Reggie White and Clyde Simmons and Seth Joyner and Byron Pitts and Andre Waters and Wes Hopkins, just legendary guys. And then Randall was like developing into a pretty good passer and a pretty good quarterback. And we thought both of those years, they were ready to take that next step, and they didn't do it. They won 10 games each year, but then lost in home wild card games both years, becoming the only team, and still the only team in NFL history to lose home wild card games by 14 or more points in consecutive seasons. So that's my answer. 89 and 90, 04. I think we all felt that way.
Okay. Next one from Tony House. Do you see Gardner Minshew being traded before the start of the season? I'll go first on this one. I don't. I think this is now a team that has serious playoff hopes. And unless they get blown away by a trade offer, I don't think he's going to get moved. And you have to remember Baker Mayfield's out there too as a trade possibility.
Right. Yeah, I've kind of come around to your way of thinking on that. Plus, who's going to be your number 2? Carson Strong's coming off 2 knee surgeries.
I mean, maybe if Carson Strong shows up in camp and looks great.
Right. And he's got some tools. I mean, he had a hell of a year for Nevada, 36 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 70% completion percentage. But he's also got some knee situations going on. And I kind of thought they were going to trade Minshew, but look, if you feel like you're on the doorstep of something, you want that backup quarterback because it's so rare for your starter to play every game.
Yeah. And imagine if this is a team on the cusp of the playoffs, they trade Gardner Minshew, and then they have to throw in, Carson Strong or Reed Sinnett out there, and they lose a game that they needed to win because they got a 4th round pick, or like that. That doesn't make sense.
Right. Agree.
All right. Next one, Kevin Rogers. Is there still only one punter on the 90-man roster? Seems like something they're neglecting, trying to upgrade at that position. Got to at least be some competition to bring in there, right?
Yeah, I think I just wrote about this a week or two ago. Michael Clay talked about it. He said, we could bring in somebody, but they think Aaron Sipos has done what he's needed to do as far as getting in better shape. And, he was okay for the first 10 games of the season. It was awful after that. I would have brought someone in, but, maybe they just feel like they're going to wait and see. You can always get a punter. You can always find some kid who's got a big leg, but surprised, but he's the only guy who's here. No competition right now.
All right, next one. I'm with you too. Like I think he'll be on a short leash, and the punters are out there. It's a small group in the world who are NFL caliber punters, so they're a phone call away.
Can always bring in Alex Henry.
Next one.
Inside joke.
Yeah. Sam Lees, who on the current roster could be a surprise cut or trade in the summer. There's always a guy we think is a lock that doesn't end up on the final 53.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
You have anybody in mind?
Well, the one guy who I don't think now, but if you were to ask me this question a month ago, I might have said Isaac Seumalo.
Right.
But I really think he has the inside track on being that right guard.
Yeah.
I'll give you one. Jalen Reagor, I don't know how much of a surprise that would be.
Right.
It would surprise me because I know what the contract means.
Yeah.
But if they look at him and like, this guy's not getting better, he's hurting our team. I think they'd try to trade him first, but at a certain point, maybe they just cut him and eat it.
Yeah, and I think somebody else would have to. I was going to say Greg Ward. I don't know how.
I don't think that would surprise me at all.
Yeah. I don't think there's a lot of people in that position, but if there were, they wouldn't be a surprise. It's a great question. I think Reagor will be here just because of the number and the contracts, and also I think you want to give a former one every imaginable opportunity to salvage his career because you've invested so much in him. But they might just be like, look, this is hopeless. See ya. But I don't think there's a lot of, I can't really think of a whole lot of guys in that position.
If we're following their recent history, and I don't believe this, I think he's going to be pretty good, but Kaiser White, just given that
right.
they've really struggled to hit on those veteran linebackers.
Right.
We've seen the Eric Wilsons and the Corey Nelsons and Paul Warlows and all those guys. But I don't think that's the case with him. Another one that would make sense to me, but they just didn't add it. If they had added another safety, I think Anthony Harris would fit there, but they still have enough to cut him.
Yeah, but it still wouldn't surprise me if somebody emerges, somebody blossoms. I think anyone on a 1-year contract is a candidate for this, just because the financials make sense. So Orlando Scandrick could go any minute now.
Next one, James Tatum, with Devin Allen's recent performance in the 110-meter hurdles. This is not a track question, by the way.
Damn.
Does he have a viable chance to knock Jalen Reagor off the starting punt returner, kick returner positions?
Yeah, it's I wouldn't say there's a huge chance that he'll make the roster. The guy hasn't played in so long. I think it's gonna be fun to see. I wouldn't count it out. He hasn't been a regular player. He did play up through 16. They just didn't play many games in 20. I just think he's a long shot. I just think it's fun to think about, but and I do think there's a chance. I just think it takes a long time to kind of get back to football when you haven't played it that long. So I don't think there's a huge chance he'll be on the roster, but wouldn't be surprised if they keep him on the practice squad. There's no track meets in the fall, so he's got nothing else to do. Keep him on the practice squad and just see if you can develop him to the point where maybe one day he can help you.
Yeah, problem is he's 27. Which,
yeah.
Does make. But the other part of the question, I guess, is, is Jalen Reagor still the top guy at those spots? I don't know that for sure. I think Kenny Gainwell could overtake him as a kick returner, which, look, honestly, isn't that important anymore.
Right.
There are very few kick returns, but the punt returner still matters. And I don't know what they're going to do there. They have some options. Britton Covey's a guy who, if he makes the roster, he's going to return.
Sure.
That's the reason he would make the roster. And I guess Devin Allen, too. I mean, if one of those guys is on the roster, they're on the roster in a large part to be return men.
Who do you think has a better shot to stick, Covey or Devin Allen?
Covey.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, the guy who's played football in the last 5 years. Last one, and I'm skipping a few here. I apologize. From Lewis, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
A lot of wood.
You know, a woodchuck, it's just a groundhog. It's just a different name for a groundhog.
What about a woodmark? How much wood could a woodmark wood if a woodmark?
Wouldn't a woodmark mark?
It's a fair question.
All right, that's it. Well, we appreciate all the questions. That was fun.
We'll do it again, like going into the season or training camp or something.
Yeah, we'll definitely get some more. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. That's it. We'll talk to you next time. For Roob, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye.